every 300 births is a case of identical twins. In the decades ahead, any parents who wish to can have identical twins or triplets or quadruplets from their own genes or from someone else's, conceived in a test tube and carried to term if they wish in an artificial womb. In fact, thousands of human beings who are exactly alike can be created by man through the science of genetic engineering. In the future, you can choose to have your offspring inherit the genes of an Einstein, or a Picasso, or a Paul McCartney. "30 years ago, Aldous Huxley forecast a society which would breed nameless, mindless workers for factories and a managerial class to direct them. He said it would happen in 600 years. Huxley was wrong only about the date. This is where it all happens, the human cell. All living things are made of cells. Cells are made up of chromosomes, 46 in every human cell, except the reproductive cells, which contain 23. Chromosomes, the rod-shaped bodies, are themselves made up of thousands of genes. It is the genes which dictate the characteristics we inherit, brown eyes or auburn hair. Genes also dictate genetic defects. To engineer the characteristics of future generations, scientists first discovered a way to preserve the sperm of the human male. This is a sperm bank. Inside these cans are millions of human sperm. It is estimated that 10,000 babies are born by artificial insemination in North America every year. The donors, who are anonymous, are paid up to $50 for their sperm. The sperm is mixed with egg yolk and glycerol and frozen in liquid nitrogen, ready to be used for artificial insemination. The idea of freezing the sperm and eggs of superior people was first conceived in 1939 by the American geneticist Herman Muller. He proposed a kind of human seed catalog for married couples to select the kind of children they want. To avoid the danger of instant fashions in sperm and egg selection, there would be a ban till 20 years after the donor's death. Ordinary people would not be allowed to reproduce themselves. Instead, the sperm and eggs of great men and women would be frozen indefinitely and available on demand. This sperm could fertilize an egg in the next century. The woman who gave this egg could have died years ago. Young couples could have their sperm and eggs frozen and then be permanently sterilized. When they wanted children, they could get their frozen sperm and eggs from the sperm bank. Widows of men killed in war could continue to have their husbands' children. Couples could choose the egg of an admired actress, the sperm of an honored statesman, and have them fertilized in a test tube where the egg would divide and develop into a baby with their characteristics. The next stage is embryo transplant, projected for humans within the year in England. Here, the fertilized eggs of a superior goat are removed surgically, incubated in a rabbit. The developing embryo is later implanted in the womb of a second goat to bring to term. In the future, a couple may shop for a frozen embryo in a supermarket. The chosen embryo can be implanted in the wife's womb or in the womb of a surrogate mother who is paid to have the pregnancy for her.
The possibility of choosing your child, walking into a supermarket, to put it very crudely, and picking from a series of packages in the deep freeze department I think this is sensationalized.
Dr. Robert Franker, experimental embryologist.
It is a possibility and probably will be done, but I think you're dealing here with something that the scientists are not really ready to deal with and are very much afraid of, and that's the psychological factors. How will women feel about this? All right.
Already, doctors can take an unborn lamb from its mother by cesarean section and put it safely into an artificial womb called an oxygenator. So far, lambs have lived for over a week, submerged in the temperature-controlled amniotic fluid bath, and have grown normally when decanted or given birth from the artificial womb. The process will almost certainly be applied to humans. The Russians claim that a fetus fertilized in a test tube was grown for 6 months in an artificial womb. In the late 70s, a couple who have chosen the sperm and egg they want fertilized, or the frozen embryo, may have the baby grown in such an artificial womb so they can visit and watch it develop. The fetus could be monitored during its 9 months' growth, and genetic engineering could repair any congenital malformation, immunize infants against infection, replace faulty genes with healthy synthetic ones through prenatal genetic surgery.
What we're looking for here is the answers as to why the newt regenerates and man doesn't. And hopefully to...
In the future, genetic surgery could also enable man to regrow amputated limbs, as the salamander does, by learning how to turn on certain genes.
A limb bud, or blastema as we call it, and you can see this, there's a little bud on the end of this limb. This is then a regeneration blastema. The next stage we can look at is 75 days. This is an animal that has had the amputation of the right limb, and you can see the young regenerate. And again, all these amputations were through the elbow region. Finally, within 3 to 4, 5 months, depending on the age of the animal, the sex, and so on, you see a complete regeneration on both sides. So the new regenerate is the same size as the unamputated or non-amputated limb on the left-hand side.
Genetic surgery can also combine this boy and his pet mouse. If scientists are able to fuse human eggs and animal eggs, man-animal hybrids could be bred. These are living man-mouse cells. As the geneticists play God, mice with opposable thumbs and men that see in the dark could issue from their test tubes. Dr. Kurt Hirschhorn, Chief of Genetics at Mount Sinai School of Medicine.
Geneticists on the whole do not consider that they're playing God or messing around with nature. What the geneticist tries to do is basically genetic analysis. He tries to find out what is the genetic material, how does it work, where does it go wrong, and in those cases where it obviously goes wrong, to attempt to correct it so as to permit that situation that is wrong to be righted within the present environment. From the point of view of the individual, there are a variety of approaches that are now being investigated by various laboratories. Some of these have been quite successful with lower organisms. Others are still in the thinking stage. One of these, for example, is the so-called cloning of individuals. It has already been possible with frogs to establish in the test tube an individual who is identical to a cell taken from another frog. What this, of course, implies is that one can make a virtually unlimited number of identical individuals.
Frogs' eggs are easy to get and conveniently large to work with. individual eggs are put on a slide. The nucleus, the dark center of the egg, is removed under the microscope with a needle to be replaced by a foreign nucleus. Tissue is then taken from the tadpole of a different species of frog. A cell is taken from that tissue, and the nucleus taken from the cell. This donor nucleus is inserted into the egg in place of its own nucleus. The egg develops into an adult frog, identical to the donor tadpole. The new frog is a clone. The process is called cloning. Identical twins are a naturally occurring clone. It will be theoretically possible to produce humans asexually by cloning in the same way that frogs are cloned. By removing the nucleus from a human cell, taken say from the skin of your arm, and placing it in a human egg that has had its own nucleus removed, geneticists can produce an identical copy, a clone, however many you choose, 2 of each, 4, 10, or 100, all exactly like you.
Some scientists say we'll clone the first human beings around the year 2000, which isn't too far away. I would suspect within the next 10 or 15 years it will be a reality, and that we will face the question of should we allow certain individuals to clone themselves, mass produce identical twins like gingerbread men on a factory line.
It would theoretically be of advantage to, let us say, replicate another Einstein. On the other hand, one with a good memory of the approaches to science and eugenics and so on of Germany in the 30s, one can well conceive of a situation where if this type of technique were to fall into the hands of certain politicians, that one might very readily make a foot army from the cells of a perfect foot soldier.
Frozen gene banks hold the promise of immortality, but who shall choose? The most important work of genetic engineering in the 70s will be the prevention of genetic defects. Defects result when genes change from the norm. Such mutations can be caused by cosmic rays, Earth radiation, X-rays, nuclear fallout, or chemicals such as LSD. Though we may look normal, we are all carriers of a small number of defective genes, which we may pass on to our children. It's too late to correct genetic disorders for children like Judy, suffering from dwarfism. But for those still to come, the future prescribes genetic counseling to parents at risk and gene identification cards for the population at large.
When I see a genetically defective child, I find it very frustrating and depressing, because if we only knew enough, we could prevent the defect. In your family on either side.
Dr. Margaret Thompson is responsible for genetic counseling at the Toronto Hospital for Sick Children. She warns parents who already have defective children of their chances of having more children with similar defects.
To do all of their medical treatment in a day.
Kevin and his sister Andrea have cystic fibrosis. In this case, both parents carry recessive genes, but had no way of knowing in advance. Janice has Mongolism. There is no cure and no hope for this disease. There is only prevention in the future through genetic counseling.
And this picture shows what Janice's chromosomes are like, and you'll see that she has 2 of every kind, 2 X's, because she's a girl, except for one set, which we call a 21st set, and she has 3 of those. And it's this extra chromosome in all of her body cells that accounts for all her difficulties. Although we can't do anything about treating Mongolism, I think that any woman who is about 40 years old and who is pregnant ought to have amniocentesis.
The unborn baby sheds cells into the amniotic fluid in which it lies. Some of this fluid is drawn off for testing to determine whether there are chromosomal or enzymatic abnormalities. What we understand, we can alter or repair, extend or duplicate. Physical sciences are ready to unlock the genetic code. The important question is, how will we choose to intervene in the ancient designs of nature for men? Even the timeless patterns of aging, maturity, and growth will be subject to our design. The problem is, games with nature are played for great stakes. The outcome moves our whole social structure. And if we play this game, we must be prepared to accept the responsibility and face the consequences.
One does worry a bit about who is going to do the management of this kind of genetic engineering or biologic engineering. For example, if we are going to consider anything in the genetic makeup as beneficial or detrimental, who is going to judge whether it is, in fact, good or bad?
But I think if people everywhere start talking and communicating and discussing these possibilities, learning what is possible, examining it, talking about the implications, I think then we can face the future with some hope. If we ignore it and say it's not going to happen because I don't want it to happen, it's going to happen anyways, and it's going to happen haphazard, and there's going to be a lot of shattered human beings as a result.
All that we have to remember as one lesson is the lesson of identical twins. They have enough troubles, as is well known to psychologists, all by themselves. Can you therefore imagine what might happen if we had, let's say, 100 identical individuals competing with each other for individual attention, which is, after all, an kind of an inalienable right of freedom of man?
Gingerbread men on a production line. It can happen with humans. Man, the creator, must decide if he wants it that way.